Republicans want you pregnant and Democrats want to kill all the babies, right? Today, we are going to do a free deep dive on everyone's favorite topic, motherhood and why no decision is the right one. I'm Maggie Gelson Burnett.
And I'm Mallory Hagan with Park Hagan Stramera. And this is Pretty Furious.
Wow, our little co host.
Our little co-host is back, but you know what? He's gonna start daycare next week. We'll get
That is
into that
so
decision.
exciting. Wow, so exciting.
Yeah, so last co-host appearance, maybe. We'll see.
That is amazing. And amazing for you and for him.
Yes.
I'm very excited to chat more about the daycare of it all. We recently found a daycare and I had no idea that when people talked about picking daycares, how long wait lists were and things like that.
I actually do. And also because the place that he's going to go is really, really well reviewed. But I am wondering if it's potentially because of the price point. So unclear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another topic that we'll get into on this episode.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about motherhood, parenting, pregnancy, postpartum, why no decision will ever be the right one, especially living in America. But before we get into that, please be sure that you're following us everywhere. We are at Pretty Furious Pod, wherever you get your podcasts. We host on Substack, though, so we would love to see you following us over there. And don't forget to give The Siren, our parent network, a follow as well. All right. So on that note, Mallory, you are relatively new to the motherhood game. You have just decided on a daycare for your child. I feel like that's a great segue. What do you think is the most surprising thing about motherhood in America, specifically, that you've learned so far?
The most surprising part about motherhood to me is really just how isolating it is. And I say that as someone who has had tremendous support from my friends and family. My friends have flown in from around the world to spend time with us. And my parents were here for weeks on end. And we actually ran into the holidays, which means we were surrounded by people. And
Yeah.
all of that, it's still really isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just sort of this testament to the culture that we have created and cultivated in America, where we're so hell-bent on being independent and like the nuclear family that we've lost the understanding of like community and third spaces and all those things. So to
Yeah,
me,
totally.
that's the most surprising part of it. That's also negative. There's a lot of really great, wonderful things about it, but I think
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
that's the part that I was like, wow, I just don't think I could have wrapped my brain around that until I experienced it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I
What's
think what
surprising you about pregnancy?
that's what, you know what? Everyone has asked me that in the last few weeks. I've gotten that question like 3 or 4 times. And most recently, yesterday morning at my maternity photo shoot, the photographer was like, what do you think is what has been the most surprising part of pregnancy to you? And I think my response probably sounds relatively generic to the people who hear it. And they're like, well, yeah, fucking duh. But it really is so shocking to me that how nonchalant we are about pregnancy. We just, in America, we just see pregnant people walking around and we're just like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
no big deal. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? I,
Mm-hmm.
I really have a hard time grasping that, because I'm sort of like, yeah, in 76 days, I'll just give birth and there will be another person here. And people are like, yeah, and that's just what it is. And I'm like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? It really is so crazy to me that our bodies do this incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging, incredibly miraculous thing. And people just I don't know. It's people are just like, yeah, whatever. And I'm
Yep.
like,
I
what?
when I was pregnant and postpartum, I have said multiple times, I mean, yes to a handicap space, but there should also be spaces in parking lots and there should be different accommodations for people who are growing humans
Absolutely.
and have just pushed one out. Sorry, but I
Absolutely.
also would like to park near the front door because I have this and like all my shit that goes with him. And, it's just like, but once, a woman gets pregnant and gives birth and they're like, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, and they, like, usher you out the door, and they're like, "Okay, have a great day," and you're like, "What
Yeah.
the fuck?" Like,
Yeah.
where in places like, in Asia, they take, a full 60 days with mom to, it's like it's like her and her baby are, like, essentially in a condo together for, like, 60 days,
Yeah.
like, it's just
Well,
like
and also, I
eh.
mean, thinking about just the concept of like how little knowledge you walk out of the hospital with.
Yeah,
Like if you
exactly.
if you are not a parent who took it upon themselves, yeah. If you're not a parent who took it upon themselves to like take a birthing class, take a breastfeeding
Right.
class,
Mhm.
learn about infants. Like if you're not doing the research, you just walk out of the hospital with a human.
That's crazy.
Have
That's
fun.
fucking nuts. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that we just, like, allow for that anyone can do it. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm like, "No, there has to be an exam you have to take." Like, there has to be a test now that
Yeah.
you have
I
to
mean,
pass a litmus test to be able to have a baby.
and you know what I think too? The people who like it is not instinctual. I think I have a
Mhm.
lot of parenting instincts. I have a lot of mothering instincts, but some of the stuff dealing with newborns and infants is not instinctual. And
I
like if you don't know it, you could kill them. Like what do you
literally
mean?
people hand me a newborn sometimes, like, I've held several newborn children and used to be a nanny and used to babysit and do all of the things, and like, I feel like I just, yeah, I, like, freeze. I'm like, "What does it
Yeah.
do? What do I need to do here? What
Like, if
happens
you
if"
don't know that babies can't have water, if you don't know that they
Right,
can't have
yeah,
milk, like, there's, like, stuff that if you just watched movies growing up and no one ever taught you about parenting, you would be like, "Yeah, sure, let's throw some milk in a bottle, that's great for my baby." No, it's not.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know. It's just crazy. It's crazy to me. Look how cute you are that they just let me leave
Well,
the
you're so
hospital
cute,
with you.
though. But,
But
like,
yeah,
I
I
think
think that that's wild.
that's a great point, though, because that's a good segue into kind of like what we're gonna talk about today, which is sort of like how there are all these choices associated with motherhood, with pregnancy, with postpartum, and it's it's essentially only women who are responsible for making the choice because we are the ones who are carrying them and creating them. And so the thought process is like you're doing the lifting on creating and carrying and delivering this child. So therefore, you also should be doing all of the decision making regarding everything else associated with the child.
Yep.
And
And
that's
if
something,
it's not that it's if it's not that it's you, like, having to make all the decisions, it's you, I think, in most scenarios, driving the conversation about the decisions.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Constantly thinking about what pediatrician are we going to use? What formula are we going to use? Am I going to breastfeed? Is there like what daycare? Am I going to go to daycare? Should I leave my job? Like these are all things that men just don't actually inherently have the decision. Like it's just not instinctual for them to kind of like make these choices. So we're going to talk about how that's kind of like partially uniquely American and obviously the sort of factors that play into that. Something that I think is crazy is how many decisions there are to be made around pregnancy and around childbirth, specifically in America. Like when we talk about other countries that are, where you give birth in the UK or in Europe, really more broadly speaking, there's so many less, like, choices I feel like you have to make. I have a friend who gave birth twice in the UK, and she always talks about how, like, there's very little decisions to be made. So, I find that to be really
Oh,
wild that,
I'm
like,
interested to hear more about that.
kind of like as it relates to like it's just much more normal in the UK to like, go to the hospital. They have I think far less use of like, kind of interventions like pitocin and epidurals and,
Yeah.
things like that. So it's and a far less amount of C-sections that happen. Like so I find it fascinating that so much of like those decisions do kind of end up being uniquely American for the sole purpose that like our hospitals and our medical system want to like shuffle people in and out as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
sometimes at the risk and at the expense of mothers and children. So that's something that's really surprised me a lot about like, coming up with a birth plan and learning about pregnancy and like how I'm going to give birth and all of that shit. So yeah, that's something I find crazy. Um, are you familiar with an influencer named Danny Austin?
I'm not, no. Who's that?
So Danny Austin is pew 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 a part of Dear Media. Her podcast is housed under
Oh,
Dear
okay.
Media's network. She also runs an incredibly successful hair care company called Divi,
Hmm.
and which I don't know how it's successful because the reviews are like hot garbage. Like people are like, this is like effectively like
The
rosemary
worst thing
oil.
it
And yeah, it's very bizarre. But she has a few children, I think. She might have just had her third or fourth kid. She has a few children. And a video went viral recently of her in a hospital bed, freshly postpartum, like having just given birth. Her and her husband are sitting there. I think they've got like a toddler there. She's holding a baby. Like it's very like it's very like trad wife coded. And she's doing this video talking about decisions she made when she went to the hospital to give birth. She
Hmm.
talks about refusing an IV. She talks about refusing a vitamin K shot for her child. She talks about just kind of like decisions in terms of, like vaccinations and, like delayed cord clamping and things like that. Like, so some things that I'm like, yeah, delayed cord clamping, we plan to do that as well. But then other things where you're like refusing an IV, like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
So having this like major influencer, she has millions and millions of followers across platforms talking about something that is so incredibly dangerous. So many OB nurses chimed in on her video being like,
And we're like, "No."
don't refuse an IV. Like, this
Yeah,
is really dangerous.
like, for no
So,
that okay, yeah.
and for no reason. Yeah, for
Yeah.
no reason. Like, other than she just didn't want an IV. Fucking bonkers. So, and things like, refusing to be like refusing Pitocin, things like that that are medical interventions that some people just need. So I find it crazy that like, and she's very MAGA coded. She's very like, she's immersed in that world. So I find it interesting that we now have like these MAGA influencers who are now kind of trying to influence people about their pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum decisions, which I also think is like a very uniquely American experience. So it's crazy.
God, and I don't wish it on anyone. I know we're gonna talk a little bit more about sort of what our algorithms look like and what we're being fed, but the truth of the matter is that, like, even before you get pregnant, the choices that you're making or that you're having to walk yourself through to go down that path, if it's one that you're choosing, if you're choosing pregnancy, in pregnancy, it's like every single moment of the day is filled with a this or a that. Or should even so for someone like myself who Park was an IUI baby, which meant that we did several rounds of IUI, which meant that I was for a year thinking about like what am I eating? When am I eating it? If I'm having alcohol, when am I having it
Hmm.
relative to my I mean, it was just like a full year of that
It's constant.
before before I even got pregnant, and then you get pregnant, and then it all really, like, comes into a magnifying glass, and you're
Mhm.
constantly I mean, right now, everything you do, you're looking at the label, and you're reading, "Can I put this on my skin? Should I eat this? How much of this should I eat? If I do eat it,"
Mhm.
like, I mean, it's just exhausting. Like,
I
yeah.
find it funny too, like, when you were doing IUI, did you start seeing, all of, like, the ads and stuff for different, like, pregnancy products or, like, conceive naturally products or things like that? Or was that something you
Yes.
didn't experience till pregnancy?
No, I definitely started seeing ads specifically for more apps, more period tracking
Mm.
apps to better understand my cycle, like figure out my basal temperature, all these kinds of things that of course I had already done, right? Like,
Peter Thiel's like, "Mallory's trying to get pregnant, we better
yeah.
follow her."
Yeah, I mean, I started getting all sorts of ads for things like that, right? Or, you
Wild.
know, all sorts of gadgets that will help in the process. Like, I mean, it's just,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. But the decisions of like how you're going to get pregnant, and like, I mean, I don't know. It's just
Mhm.
there's just so many things that I think we really we just don't talk about enough. Like how much
Yeah.
is rolling around in our brains in the process
Mhm.
of pregnancy, childbirth, motherhood, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating you bring up so you did IUI, which I'm sure was a expense, an out-of-pocket expense for you. I find it funny and like I think it's incredibly worth mentioning the cost piece of it for women that is just not there for men. So like women are, spending money on supplements and the best prenatal and if you're getting a period tracking app, usually there's a gadget associated with it. There's an aura
And those
ring, there's
cost
a
and yeah.
yep, there's a basal body temperature measuring, device.
Mhm.
There's, you getting a gym membership. There's you, doing
The the
seeing a
the
holistic
sticks.
doctor. Yeah, ovulation sticks. Like
Sexy.
all of that is a cost again associated only specifically with women. And I think that cost matters. Like I think there's of course the mental cost of it all, but then there's also the very real like tangible cost of it all. So I think that's worth noting. Again, something that I think is kind of like a uniquely American problem. I don't know as to though other countries receive near the amount of like advertising to them as you know for prenatal women, pregnant women, postpartum women, etc. I don't know that other countries really have that issue. In fact, there was a 2023 study that found that pregnant people are disproportionately targeted by wellness misinformation ads on Meta platforms.
I I
So
I 100% believe it.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like the minute I started talking about getting pregnant, which
Mhm.
we were so diligent in planning our pregnancy and trying to plan it and so diligent in like the year leading up to 2 years leading up to getting pregnant. Like I feel like the minute I even uttered the words like I'm going to start trying to get pregnant, Facebook and Instagram were like pew 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 server the ads. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
just crazy. So yeah, the algorithm piece I think is very much so worth noting too. Like we talked about the Danny Austin of it all, but then there's just kind of like how platforms more broadly speaking track pregnancy data. Like they're looking at your search history, your purchase behavior, your app usage, and they begin serving you that content before you've even like told anybody you're pregnant, told anybody you're trying to conceive. Like it's
Yes.
just I remember getting the positive pregnancy test and I think I texted you like 24 hours later, but like I had this very small chunk of time where I was the only person that knew.
Mhm.
And well, myself and my spouse, but like even in that time, it's like you search one thing and it's like
And they're like,
the
"Okay,
internet
the floodgates
explodes.
have opened." No,
And
I
instantly my TikTok
totally
was like insane. Yeah.
I totally, I actually so I was getting fed content, right? Before I had told, I really wanted to tell my family in person, and we were sort of waiting for that window when we were gonna see them. So I knew for quite some time before my family did. And I think that it was so wild to me that I was being fed all of this content, and I've sent you over the last year, I've sent you plenty of screenshots of my, like, For You pages where it's just like
Your For You page is crazy.
they are absolutely insane. I'm talking I was like 8 weeks pregnant, and it was like all the people who were willing to say that out loud. "I'm 8 weeks pregnant." And I just like every time I got on TikTok that "I'm 8 weeks pregnant. If you're 8 weeks pregnant and you're thinking about," and I was like, "This is wild." But
That's crazy.
the crazier thing is I started to realize like, "Oh, I need to be careful about my behavior online because if I'm liking these
Mm,
things on now Instagram, you can see who's liked certain
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And if I'm saving things, like, people can see. I mean, I just started thinking then, like, "Oh my god, my mom's gonna see that I'm saving all this baby stuff," and, like, they know
Mhm.
that I'm trying, but now so it's just even more like, that created a whole different anxiety of I was like, "I'm gonna accidentally tell on myself
Absolutely,
just by
yeah.
being on the internet." Yeah.
And then it's like, that algorithm follows you throughout pregnancy. We've talked about this, offline, that it follows you throughout pregnancy and then it follows you into motherhood. And you
Yes.
sent me a screenshot of your Instagram Explore page the other day, and I want to put that in the show notes so that people can see your
Yeah.
Explore page because it
Well,
is fucking crazy.
I also want to point out something that I've noticed in this process. As we're talking about like all the decisions that you end up making, and we're going to get into some of those decisions, but like the one of the things that starts to happen online is that I don't know if these are AI accounts. I don't know if they are like some crazy coordinated Peter Thiel effort with EV magazine. I have no idea, but there
Probably.
are there are hundreds of accounts that basically post the same exact copy. So
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
different video, it's a different creator, and it maybe has like a similar hook. Like they'll never tell me that this is wrong as they're co-sleeping with their baby.
Yeah.
And then
Uh-huh.
the copy is almost exactly verbatim to several other accounts. And so as a pregnant person and then new mom, as I'm thinking about some of these decisions or learning more about co-sleeping or not co-sleep, like all that stuff, you start getting fed these things. And then one day I was like, this is the same copy that I saw 2 days ago. Totally different
Yeah.
creator,
Mhm.
doesn't look the same. And so then I started to really notice that like there's a lot of that out there pushing a specific
Yeah.
agenda or message. I don't know who like what's the big co-sleeping agenda? I have no idea. But like there is a huge push for some
Yeah.
of these things that are very like anti-establishment mothering
Mhm.
practices, I guess. I don't know. And it really really helps me to become aware of that because you
Yeah.
start to feel like, oh, am I crazy for wanting my kid to sleep in a bassinet instead of next to
Yeah,
me? Like,
totally.
or am I
Mhm.
a bad mom for not wanting to snuggle my newborn? And it's like, no, actually, you're a good mom for wanting your kid to be alive. So, like,
Well, right,
I
and
don't
there's
know.
I mean, even now there's, I just noticed this. I bought a sleep course from an account that is, I won't name the account, although it's very easy to figure out who this person is, so, like, do with that what you will. The course is great. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. But this woman is incredibly progressive, incredibly liberal. Her and her husband are like, I love their like individual accounts as well. He's very like hands-on. He's kind of like a stay-at-home dad with their children. And she runs this like, I mean, for lack of better term, like a sleep training academy of sorts. And she essentially is like, what we do in America is wrong. The way that we try to teach our children to sleep so early is wrong. Therefore, she endorses practices like sleep training or co-sleeping, not sleep training your child, not doing any kind of like, is it the Ferber method, like crying it out, things like that. And I love that, and I think that's great that, like, you're trying to bring more awareness to the ways that other countries do sleep with their children. However, and she frames it through the lens of, like, we sleep train because of capitalism. We sleep train because of patriarchy and all of these things. Totally get that, totally fair, understand that. And also, we still live in a country that does not have
I
any
was going to
paid
say,
maternal
I
leave,
mean, yeah.
paternal leave. So what are we expecting unless this is happening on a systemic level where we are willing to change and offer resources for new parents? You're never going to catch me co-sleeping with my kid. Fuck no, because I need to get some fucking sleep, dude. And like, I also don't want, then it's also framed as like, but you'll get sleep if you co-sleep. Like, and then you're like, is this a Republican agenda or a Democrat agenda? And you're
But
just like,
also,
what the
like,
fuck?
yeah, it just goes to show you, right? So pregnancy, the decisions are about like, what can you eat? What can you not eat? What should you put on your skin? What should you not put on your skin? How serious do we take things like hair dye? How serious do we, like, it's
Right.
just, it's a series of trying to understand where your boundaries and lines are, and being fed content and information that makes you kind of feel like shit no matter what you choose.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
exactly.
then you get into motherhood and it is I mean, I can't tell you how insane you feel at all times. And the truth of the
Yeah.
matter is like, in order to have the most informed decision that you can have, the amount of mental capacity that you have in order to do the
Yep.
research, understand all the different moving parts of it. Like you said, sleep training, right? Great
Yeah.
example. Great example of something where it's like, yeah, I understand why people don't want to. I don't want to let him lay there and cry. No one wants that. But if he doesn't learn how to sleep, we're going to be battling this for the next 3 years.
Yeah,
Like, so
exactly.
he has to learn how to sleep, and we have to help our kids do hard things. My friend Brittany said that to me
Mhm.
when we were first doing, we do a very like soft Ferber method,
Sure,
but
yeah.
like, she was like, you know what? If you don't, she said, I have friends who have toddlers who still won't go to sleep. They won't go to sleep because
Exactly.
their parents never put them down, never forced them to learn how to close their eyes and go to sleep.
And you'll never
And
fucking catch me doing that, bro.
and
Mm-mm.
here's the thing. If that works for you and you're a mom who has all the time in the world every night to exhaust yourself with 3 hours of bedtime, then by all means, go
Right,
ahead,
yeah.
bitch. I don't care.
But yeah.
But like, I don't have time for that. I
Yeah.
simply do not. And what Brittany said, because it is hard when you first start the process of allowing them to learn how to go to sleep,
Mhm.
it's hard. It's really hard as a mom. And physically, it is physically painful to me to hear him cry. Like, I
Yeah.
just can't do it. I saw a video the other day online about how dads like are just letting the kid cry in the room and there's no, like, they're just like, whatever. And moms are like, that's how I
Yeah,
feel.
like losing their minds, yeah.
Losing my mind. And it's hard, but Brittany said, she was like, for the rest of their lives, it's our job to help them do hard things. And it's not always
Mhm.
easy on us, and it's not always easy
Yeah.
on them. But like, that's
Yeah.
your job as a parent. And so
Mhm.
that choice that you're talking about, like, do we sleep together? Do we not? Do we Ferber
Mm.
method? Do we not? And it's like, you just have to figure out which choice you can live with. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I mean,
Because
like
because everything makes you feel like shit no matter which choice you make.
exactly. I was just gonna say, like, so many of these choices too come down to, or are framed as rather, a a a sort of decision of morality. So, like, you are a more moral person if you co-sleep with your kid instead of letting them cry it out. Even though we live in a place that doesn't support any of us
Any of
worth a
us doing
fuck,
that.
yeah, like, to do anything that would let us try to, like, have them self-soothe at night and learn how to sleep, and then we also have to get up for a job in the morning, and then we also have to pay for daycare, like, if we lived anywhere else, this would be a fundamentally different conversation. And somewhere that I see that kind of, like, morality piece come in a lot is when we talk about, like, how you give birth, like the childbirth process.
Mhm.
Whereas kind of like there's this essentially a false binary of like, if you give birth naturally, that is you're morally superior to other people who give birth either with an epidural, maybe vaginally, more broadly speaking, or
A
if you
C-section.
give, yeah, if you give birth with a C-section. So, I've heard friends who have said this to me before. Who I had this friend who came over one time and we were talking about, do you have a birth plan? Blah blah blah. And she had 2 C-sections with her children, had a great experience with both of them, like, was not traumatized by them, was like, "Yep, had a C-section.
Loved it.
It was
I
great.
have a friend
Yep."
like
Like,
that.
yep, and she was like,
She
"And
was
I
like,
scheduled
"Scheduled
that second
it?"
one."
God.
Yep, 100%. I'm like, "Good for you, girl." And I've got another friend who scheduled both of hers, like, and she said that she was in a conversation with a woman one time, and the woman said something to her along the lines of like, well, like, something like to the effect of like, "You had a C-section, I had a vaginal birth. Like, we're not the same," type of thing. And it's
Did you
that
both get
sort
a
of
baby? Then yes, you are.
exactly. I once had a boss who told me, and this this woman's insane, like, gave birth to twins naturally, just a crazy, crazy person. And she once said to me in a training at work at a Pilates studio one time, she said, you will all leave the hospital with the same prize. No one is
Mhm.
ever going to ask you, did you give birth naturally? Like, or
Yeah.
and no one, and if they care about that type of thing, they're not worth a fuck anyway. And so I think it's really interesting that we, especially in America, kind of like categorize people by who is morally superior, who's better than. And I even find myself doing this sometimes where I think to myself, like, you know, oh, I want to labor as long as I can on my own, and and I had a friend recently who her husband said to me, he was like, why would you want to do that? And I was like,
Yeah,
that is a
why?
really great
As
question you raised.
as someone who did it for 36 hours, I'll let you know.
Right. Yeah. And like,
0 out of 10 recommend.
there's of course like the more practical, like, I'm thinking about it through like, how can we reduce intervention? Like, how can we, how could I labor at home as long as possible and get to the hospital and have that process go as fast as humanly possible? So there's of course like the practicality of it, but then there's also like, sort of this other side where it's like, well, who gives a fuck how long you labor at home? Like,
Yeah,
if you
because
go to the
nobody's
hospital,
giving you a prize for however you do it.
you're not
And
getting an award.
that's the thing. If you want to do it naturally because you just really want to feel that feeling, by all means, go ahead.
Girl play.
But I just kind of don't need that prize,
Yeah,
personally or otherwise. And I don't think that like sharing that with people, first of all, is any of their business.
100%.
I just I don't know. Like, do what you
Mhm.
want, of course, but there's no superior method to
Yeah.
getting your child here safely. And
Mhm.
that's really the thing for me is like just do what you need to do in order for you both to live in this healthcare
Exactly.
system
Yep.
and hellscape,
Exactly. And
right?
great segue, because I was just gonna touch on the fact that the US has the highest maternal mortality rate of any developed country. Black women die at 2 to 3 times the rate of white women. And so this is like
Especially in places like Alabama.
exactly, especially in places where, rural health is non-existent. Hospitals are closing left and right. Like, we don't have healthcare workers who want to work because our healthcare system fucking sucks. It's like, okay, so are we really going to have the conversation of like whether you have an epidural or not? Because like, who gives a fuck? Like, that just doesn't, in the grand scheme, matter at all when we're looking at it through the lens of like, this is a life or death conversation, and especially for women of color. So again, it's all very like damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing. Speaking of a topic that is not really a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because it's mostly just a damned if you don't. Uh, let's talk very briefly about vaccines, because Mallory, you've gone through a good chunk now of like having Park
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
vaccinated as a newborn. And so I like I made a video recently talking about, I don't know, or it was a post on Instagram talking about like apparently controversial things that we're planning to do as first time parents. And one of the slides said, I plan to fully vaccinate my child according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, not based on the CDC recommendations.
CDC.
Those are,
Yeah.
yeah, null and void. And I got a few comments from people. Well, first, there were people who were like, I can't believe that vaccinating your child is like a controversial opinion now. And then there were other
Isn't that
people who were,
insane?
yeah,
Isn't
it's
that
fucking nuts.
insane?
It's fucking
That's
nuts. And then there were other people who I've got a few comments who were like, please just do your own research when it comes to vaccinating your child. And
like I'm fully not equipped to do my own research. Hello.
was like, I was like, are you a data analysis like analyst? Like, can you look at data through a constructive lens? Like, is that your full-time job? Yeah, so the vaccine wars is definitely something that like I think now a lot of new moms are unfortunately being led by like a trail of misinformation into
For
kind of like an
sure.
alt-right pipeline. So I'm
Well,
curious how that presented for you, if at all.
Well, obviously, I fully vaccinated my child,
Let's get
and
clear.
myself. You know, any shot that they were like, "Hey, you should
Yep.
get this while you're pregnant." I was like, "Load me up. What do we need?" You know, I'm not questioning the people whose entire careers are based on helping us live more safely. Like
Correct.
what?
Yeah.
Um, but I will say this: living here, I found it to be so interesting how healthcare providers kind of tiptoe now around the
Mm.
vaccination conversation. So many of them are like, "So, what are you thinking about?" I'm like, "Vaccines? Load him up. What do you mean?" Like,
What are we
give
talking
him every
about?
vaccine he's ever needed, and we'll continue to do that. Just put that in my chart. If he needs a vaccine, give it to him. Like, I don't
Yeah.
no, I am not equipped to have a better opinion or do better research than decades of scientists who have
Oh my
concluded that these things
God.
will help my child live a safer, healthier existence and also be that for his community. So it really just presented itself to me like everyone being like, "So what?"
Mhm.
And also I just want to go back to the beginning when you were talking about the influencer Danny,
Yeah,
is that her
Danny
name?
Austin. Yeah.
Saying that she didn't get a vitamin K for now.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was one of the things in there. I could be wrong, but I watched that video a few times. I'm pretty sure vitamin K was in there.
I'm just okay, so I've said this about other topics. I don't understand if I gave my child alcohol and he died, I
Mhm.
would be in jail
Mhm.
because that is unsafe and we know that.
Mhm.
So I don't understand. We talked about this in our free birth episode. I don't understand how this world of like whether or not you vaccinate your kids and how you give birth, like why are these things not considered negligence or abuse?
Abuse.
Like
Mhm. Yeah.
why is this like why are we suddenly in this place in society where we're like, well, that's their choice. Well, then it's my choice to give my baby alcohol. Like you're not
Yeah.
making sense. You know,
Yeah.
the hypocrisy there is astounding and the cognitive dissonance is even more. Like what do you mean you're not giving your child vitamin K? That vitamin K is what allows their body the ability to clot blood and like to not have a brain bleed. What do you mean? It's a vitamin. Like it's literally not even a vaccine. It's a vitamin.
It's basically a supplement.
It's basically an orange.
Like, just buy it from a supplement company then.
I don't understand. I can't understand how we as a society frame some things as personal choices and decisions, and parents get away with like killing their children because they chose to not vaccinate them or whatever it is, but other things are not. It's just
Mhm.
I'll never understand
Yeah.
that. But yeah.
I mean, and so much of this obviously comes back to like, the MAGA slash Maha movement, RFK Jr., measles hit a measles cases in the US hit a record high, a 33-year high in 2024. Which I actually didn't
Which is
realize
just
that information,
stupid.
which is crazy. Like that's crazy behavior. On that Instagram post I was talking about where I said controversial things we're doing, my sister-in-law commented and said, if you don't vaccinate, or you should not be allowed to have children if you don't vaccinate them. And I said, wholeheartedly agree. I consider that to be probably one of the dumbest, most inhumane, selfish, uh, diabolical choices you could make as a parent is to not
And you know what?
vaccinate your child.
If you're listening to this and that hurts your feelings, maybe sit on that.
Go talk to a data scientist.
Or your therapist. I don't know. You probably don't have a therapist. If you're not vaccinating your kids, you're definitely not going to therapy. But
Well, I think
yeah.
what's fascinating is like so much of this is like couched in this concept of like, you know, yes, doing your own research, and like so much of it is couched within like just asking questions. Like we're just here to ask questions. And it's like, I want you to consider for a moment if maybe those questions have already been asked. Like maybe they were already asked
And that's
like
how we got here.
40 or
Yeah.
50 years ago. Like maybe polio
What
questions
did people do
were asked
before
a
they got
long time ago.
vaccinated? They died.
They
Sharon.
fucking died. Yeah, what are we talking about? Like,
God.
and
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I know a couple of people who, this is the last thing I'll say about vaccines. I know a couple of people, maybe. I know a couple of people who have had interesting responses to vaccines. So I knew somebody who had a not great response. What was chalked up to being uh, obscure response to the HPV Gardasil
uh-huh.
vaccine, which I believe only girls get. I think is teenage girls or preteens. Um, and then I had another person I knew who had a reaction to the COVID vaccine. And both of those things, I watched as both of those instances completely transformed these people and their families into people who no longer, really were like on the side of vaccinating your children, believing in science. Definitely took, I think, people down a severe MAGA pipeline. Um, and and I think to that is like something we have to keep in mind when it comes to vaccines is like, is it an absolutely 110% perfect solution to a problem that we have? Not necessarily, but like I would love if somebody could name one thing that is. Like I would love if somebody could name something within the field of medicine that is like a 100% guarantee that it's going to work. You know what I mean? Like,
But
and so
also yeah.
but
Go
and
ahead,
it's
sorry.
like and I mean, what also sucks about instances like that is that you watch as something like that happens, and then you watch as somebody starts to go down this like pipeline of being like, well, I want to ask questions about other vaccines. And you're like, God damn it, like this is where all of
Mhm.
this comes from. Like you have a health issue that you think is directly attributed to a vaccine, and therefore you begin to start asking questions about other vaccines. And that's where I'm like, God damn it. Like, and how can we with 100% certainty say that it was correlated to the vaccine or not? Like
Yeah.
these are the questions I ask. So I don't know. It's very tricky in instances like that, or I think tricky for me to like I understand how that would be a moment where somebody's like, I completely distrust the system now. The system's just trying to like the system, the
Yeah.
system, the system.
But
And but then I'm like, but do you have polio? Like,
no,
girl, like,
but I also want to put this in a different context, right? Like remove the vaccine. So somebody had a bad reaction to a vaccine and now all vaccines are potentially bad and they're asking all
mhm,
these questions.
right,
So I just want to point out that we want people to ask questions. We want people to think critically about issues. The thing that requires is that you know how far your educational path can take you and then you rely on people who know more than you who are experts in their field. Like I'm
correct.
not the smartest person in any room that I'm in. I know that. And that's
Yeah,
what makes me smart, right?
yeah,
Like but to
exactly.
say this is like saying I have a peanut allergy and therefore all food is bad. Like
Correct,
you had a
correct.
bad
Hmm.
reaction to something. And so therefore it does make sense to sort of look around and go, okay, what ingredients were in that? And how can I avoid those things in the future? Or
Hmm.
maybe I should be concerned about those things so that I don't have
Hmm.
that reaction again. But to then sort of like zoom out and be like, all food is bad. Like,
Right,
no, you have a
right.
peanut allergy. Not all food is bad. So
Hmm.
I just, I don't
Exactly.
know. But,
Or like
but
instead of the flu vaccine, I'm gonna like, take this here supplement every year. And it's like, God fucking damn it, man. Like this is where like,
that's not how
like
that works.
this is not, yeah, like this is how
Yeah.
we got here. Like it, yeah. So anyway, that is my,
Vaccines are a huge element of this conversation
we
and the
love
choices that people
vaccines. This
but
episode is sponsored by Pfizer.
it really shouldn't be a conversation about vaccines at all. Like that shouldn't even be one of the huge decisions that you end up making in the process of becoming a parent or in
Hmm.
parenting. And yet this political climate has made it such. Like so
Right.
many other things.
Well, speaking of like a decision that you would have to make, and one that you just made that you alluded to at the beginning of the episode, is going back to work. This concept of like going back to work, daycare, what you're going to do with your baby once baby's born, and how that is a very, again, uniquely American problem because we don't have any support postpartum, but also we don't have universal childcare. We have none of those resources. And it's also usually the woman's decision whether or not she's going to be the one to give up her
Mhm.
job, to afford, childcare, to all of those things. So you just decided on sending your son to daycare. What
Mhm.
was the walk us through that process? Like what that mental process was like. And you're in an interesting position of like working for yourself, but I think a lot of people who like work from home probably will resonate with your journey.
Yeah. Well, first, I would say that whether I worked for myself or anyone else, even 12 weeks postpartum, I would have been an absolute wreck trying to go back to work. So
100%.
I feel extremely fortunate that I have built a book of business that allows me to work from home and for myself so that I don't have to leave my house and go anywhere because 12 weeks postpartum, I would
And
not have.
also, can we clarify that you recorded an episode for this podcast? You came back to recording a month postpartum. You were 4 weeks postpartum when you came
I
back
was
to Pretty
working. I
Furious.
was I was
Yeah.
working full time basically at that point. And
Yeah.
this has been a challenging element of postpartum of our marriage. Like it has been
Right.
extremely challenging because I work from home and for myself, there is this concept that my work is movable, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can rearrange my life, I can rearrange my schedule to parent, to, to be with our baby. And for the most part, I have. But my workload is just too much now. And I feel really fortunate about that. Like, I'm really glad that I've built a book of business that's, it's a six figure business. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
damn good. And I'm proud
Yeah.
of that. But it also comes with a lot of pressure and anxiety. And what we're finding now is like we went on a path of hiring someone to come into the home a couple of days a week. Well, that didn't work out. The
Mm-hmm.
pros and cons of like having someone in your home while you're at home, and then they get sick, and so now they're not there, and now your whole day is shot. And like, you know
Yeah.
this is stuff that people have been dealing with in parenting for generations. Like it's not new. But we had a nanny. It didn't work out because of some health concerns that she had, so we were going to hire another one. And then I was just like, you know what, I can't do this again. Like if somebody just doesn't come to work, my whole week is ruined because I've had
Yeah.
to rearrange all of my meetings. Like I had really built my life around the days that she was here. And
Yeah.
it took
And
me,
it's you specifically who has to do that. Like you women, you are the one that
correct.
has to who views
Correct.
your
My
work
husband's
as
world didn't really change.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Whether she came or not did not affect him and his job or anything.
Which doesn't make Kevin a bad person,
No, no,
but
no. It's just, I
but
mean, this
like
is just
every
where we're at.
problem can be attributed back to the fact that women are the ones expected to make that choice, be
Hmm.
the ones to give up their work. Their work is less important, yeah, all of those things. Hmm.
Or even if it's not that it's less important, it's just typically speaking, especially if you're like still breastfeeding or, you're just the one. Like it's
Yeah, you're the
you're the
default parent.
default.
Hmm.
Um Anyway, so the decision to go to daycare has not been taken lightly, and it is one that I have a lot of feelings around. Like I don't want to cry
Hmm.
about it, but like I have a lot of feelings about it. I have a
Yeah,
lot of
totally.
feelings about going to drop my baby. He's not even a toddler. He's a baby off with other
Right.
people. And I know so many people and parents like don't even have the choice, right? They just
Yeah.
have to do it because they have to go back to work. So that's been a challenge of like getting myself to a point where I'm okay with that,
Hmm.
but also knowing that like my sanity, I can't, I am literally at my breaking point. Like
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
am hitting
Hmm.
postpartum rage. I am mad about all of it. I every day I'm just like, ah,
Yeah.
because like
Again.
I want to do my job. I
Yeah.
want to be I work for myself. I want to be a reliable person that people can count on to do what I say I'm going to do. And every single day, the nanny doesn't show. Now I'm sick. Now he's sick. Now I'm sick. Now he's
Hmm.
sick. And then the nanny doesn't show. And it's just like for 6 weeks now, I've been going back and forth with I'm not feeling like I'm doing a good job at any of it because I'm
Yeah.
angry about all of it. And
Hmm.
I think that that's probably something that a lot of women in particular face. And um speaking of the content that we're being served now, because now I'm at this point of making this decision, and the amount of content that I'm seeing that's like, you can never convince me to go back to work when what I really want to be is with my baby. How could I want to be anywhere else? But why would I want to go to work when I could be with my baby? And I know that that's like so Peter Thiel Maha shit that's being pushed at me, but it works because then you sit here and you're like, God, am I a terrible, because I'm like, he's only a baby for a year. Maybe I could just like lessen my workload, but no, I can't because I work for myself. Like, I don't have an
Yeah.
office to come back to. Like, this is a book of business that I need to maintain. So
Mhm.
there's all these things swirling around in your brain all the time that just make you're just like, oh my God, none of it is going to
Mhm.
be right.
Yeah.
If I stay home with him, because I have that flexibility and I drop all of this business that I have, then I will spend the next 2 years trying to figure out how to get it back, right? And then
Mhm.
financially, our world looks very different. But if I send him to daycare, now I'm a shit mom for choosing to build my book of business over
Correct. Yeah.
being at
Mhm.
home with my baby. Like, the absolute mind games that places on specifically moms, I think, is just
Yeah.
so unfair.
2 things. First thing, I always think of the video that I think that we're gonna try to actually recreate this weekend, so you'll get a little taste of our social media plan right now. The video of the 2 women who it's like, the girl who relates everything back to patriarchy, the girl who relates everything back to capitalism, and, like, that's how I feel like this episode can
Right.
be
Yeah.
summarized is, like, everything relates back to our country hates women, first of all. And second of all, our country hates the working class. So, like, our country hating these two subsets of women, and if you are a woman and you're also working class, then you're doubly fucked.
But
The
it's
second
also,
piece,
well, I'm
go
just
ahead.
on that piece though, like, I was talking with my friend Tally yesterday. She came over for lunch and we were just like having a trauma dump. And we were just like, we're just not meant to do this alone. Back
100%.
to the
Mhm.
beginning. We're just not meant, we're not meant to mother in silos.
Yeah.
People
Mhm.
people used to have villages, communities,
Mhm.
their neighborhoods, and I feel really lucky. We have great neighbors. And I have asked, like, can you just come sit for an hour while I do this other thing? But like,
Totally. Yeah.
but we're just not meant to. We're meant for our families to be nearby. We're meant for our community to be able to step in and help. Like, we're supposed to raise each other's kids, and
Yeah.
that's just not what we do here.
Yeah. And I mean, you can even factor into like, in America, again, uniquely American problems, like, when we think of walkable cities, like we don't have walkable cities. So therefore, like we can't just always walk down to the neighbor's house and go hang out with their kids or drop our kid off there. Another factor coming into play, and again, I don't know, like I guess I won't dub this as uniquely American, but like now we're really in the phase of like child safety. Like, do you feel comfortable dropping your kid off with
Exactly.
a man? Do you feel comfortable
No.
with like
The
the
answer is
older
no.
guy next door? Yeah, coming over and watching your child. Like, these are all things that now, uh, specifically mothers and women are the ones thinking about.
Yeah.
And so it's not to say that men are not considering these things, but certainly not to the point that women are. And that's just
No.
fact. Like, sorry, that's just like the
For
baby,
sure. For
that's
sure.
showbiz. Like, and if any like if any man gets like, bent out of shape hearing about that, like, bro, I'm so fucking sorry. Like like get out of here. I don't know what to tell you. Another like component of this like, childcare debacle, like this entire, debate of like, should you send your kid to childcare? Should you get a nanny? Should you do that? Eh, Another key factor here is considering that this stat I read, this is absolutely nuts. Women who take career breaks for caregiving earn permanently lower wages. The motherhood penalty is what this is called, and it costs women on average about 16 grand per year. That is fucking nuts to me. Like,
Mhm.
if a man ever heard that he was making less because he opted to have a family,
Mhm.
that would literally not, like, that would not exist. Like, that would be so diabolical to a man that, like, he would be like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, and women
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
do it
I
because we
I
have
think
to.
that this brings up something that I also wasn't expecting, and it is how little the world changes for men. when they have
Yeah.
children.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I don't mean like, of course they come home from work now and there's another child or a baby. Like, that's not what I mean. I mean, yeah, at a certain point they just start waking up and going back to work. And then they
Yeah.
come home and, I don't know. It's just the way that, like, my time has changed, my thoughts about time have changed, my body has changed, is still changing, my hormones have changed, my hair has changed, like,
Your mental
every
health has
my
changed, like,
mental health has
everything.
changed.
Yeah.
Every single facet of my life, my work,
Mhm.
my relationships with my friends, my familial relationships, like,
Mhm.
everything has changed.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. It's a lot. I mean, I told my therapist this recently that pregnancy is crazy because things change so fast in such a short and what
Long.
I will say long period of time,
Yeah, it feels very long.
years. But it changes so quickly that you can't keep up with it. Your brain can't keep up with it. No human's brain was biologically designed to keep up with the amount of change that you have to go through during pregnancy and postpartum. Least of all in a place like America where we don't support women postpartum, where we
Yeah.
don't give a fuck what happens once that kid leaves the hospital, once that mom leaves the hospital. So these are factors that, like, when I consider, I didn't realize this, but somebody I read this on Instagram, I think that like your hormones and nothing like levels out until you're like 3 years postpartum or something. And I thought to myself, that is that's insane. We sit
Mhm.
here and that's postpartum. So you're not factoring in the year, almost a year that you're pregnant. So
Yeah.
we're talking about a 4-year chunk of time where everything is in constant flux and change for women. And in that 4-year period of time, there's like a finite little chunk that changes for men. It's like when the baby's born. And
Yeah.
other than that, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's
so
literally,
yeah.
like, logistical. Their world
Yeah,
changes in a
correct.
tangible,
Mm,
in a logistical way. Now they come home and
mhm.
there's a different routine because there's a baby or an
Mhm.
addition to the family, but, like, you know, there's no physical change, there's no
Yeah.
real people say that there's a hormonal change for men in postpartum, and maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know,
Their testosterone drops. Yeah. Mhm.
but,
Yeah.
like, okay, short window there for you.
Yeah, and I
But,
mean,
like, your relationships with I don't I think that's the thing that's, like, really crazy is just how all of it changes your relationships, first of all, to each other when you're married, but
mhm.
then all of your external relationships and relationships that
Yeah.
you kind of, I think, thought will never be
Uh-huh.
shaken, especially because, like, I didn't have a kid till I was 36, so I'm like, "Oh, these have been my friends for a decade, more.
Yeah, right,
This isn't
right.
gonna change that, like, we're all mature here."
But I also
Not the
think
case.
too, part of it is like you don't know until you've been through it yourself too. I had I have a completely different view of women who are moms or who are pregnant or who are freshly postpartum, and I do mean freshly in that 3-4 year time period. I have a completely different view on women just by being pregnant and people who have gone through this same experience. I don't think you really, it's unfortunate to say, I don't think you can really get that unless you've been through it too.
I 100% agree, and
Like, I just
it
had
makes
no
me feel,
idea.
yeah, it makes me feel like, before I had Park, I was like, "No, I get it, it's hard, like, I wanna be there, I wanna be supportive," and even my 2 best friends who had babies a year before me, I
Mhm.
look back and I'm like, "Oh, I wish I would have done that so different. I wish I would have been there for you that year so differently, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
And I feel like I mean, to the best of my ability, like, I showed
Mhm.
up, I cleaned houses and I did the things, I was
Mhm.
there, but, like, you just don't know.
Yeah, you have no
and it
clue.
shapes everything. But again, like, it's neither here nor there. It's just a reality that those
Yeah.
relationships change,
Mhm.
and that is so different for the women experience it versus the men who are in their lives. They're just
Yeah.
not having that same. I mean, they might have less time to go spend with their friends, maybe, but other
Yeah.
than that, like, the relationship to their friends in this space just doesn't change the same way.
Yeah, 100%. I always think of,
Yeah.
like, Paige Connell, who, shameless plug, has been on the podcast. She's one of our first
Yeah.
guests. When she talked about, like, or she talks about on her Instagram story a lot, like, the golf, uh, situation, and how, like, men like to golf for their hobby, but golf is a 4 to
6 hours.
7 hour,
Yeah.
yeah, like, give or
Not
take
in
how
this
many holes
house.
you're
We're not.
playing.
No.
Yeah, and Ty's a golfer, and I love golf, and so I have said to him jokingly throughout pregnancy, I'm like, "If you're gonna fucking golf while I'm postpartum," I was like, "I'm going with you." Like, I'm like, "You're not going alone." Like,
Yeah.
it's very, like, he's, like, very scared by that. So, so yeah, I don't know if he will be, golfing too much postpartum. But I think the through line here is that none of these choices are, like, quote unquote correct. They're really about keeping women too exhausted, um,
Yeah.
and too ashamed and guilty to really ask the question, like, who is benefiting from all of this? Because if
Yeah.
we started asking those questions, if women really started tapping into, why all of this is the way that it is in America, specifically, is what I'm talking about, we would be really angry. And then what happens when women get angry is they vote. And, like,
Yeah.
that's that's very scary for a lot of people, and specifically for conservatives.
Well, I can
So,
let you know right now that I'm angry. Like,
yeah.
this experience has made me angry. It
Mhm.
makes me
Yeah.
angry at all of these systems that
Mhm.
make just make all of this, like, impossible.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
impossible. It's impossible to have a fulfilling job or work life, maintain your relationships with your friends, do what's right and best for your body mentally and physically, like, finding the time to work out while also making
Yeah.
sure that your baby's taken care of, while also making sure that you're
Mhm.
doing your job, while you're being a good wife, while your house is clean. While, I mean, we shared that there's a post or something that was like, the amount of fucking effort it takes to be, like, mediocre, to have like a
Yeah.
mediocre home and body is just astounding to me. And, like, and I guess the through line here is, like, no choice you make is going to be the right choice for anyone but yourself. It is,
Mhm.
in fact, impossible to make it through this and feel like you're doing any of it right,
Mhm.
necessarily. Um, and at the end of the day, it's like, we have to cultivate community around us with our
Mhm.
friends and the women who have done it, because you can't do it alone. And yeah, it's hard.
Mhm.
And on top of that, if I see one more bitch ass influencer do a post that's like hair fully done and makeup fully done, and she's like, "I'm not a victim of motherhood. Let's paint the other picture." And it's like, well, then you must have a fucking rich ass husband and a
Yeah.
nanny, because
100%.
otherwise, how are you not? Either
Yeah.
you don't give a fuck about your kid and you're not raising them in a way that's, like, for real,
Yeah.
or you
Right.
have extreme privileges that make this
Yeah.
super easy for you,
Mhm.
because
Pew,
there's
pew,
no other
pew.
answer.
Propaganda. Pew, pew,
There's
pew.
no other
Yeah.
answer.
Exactly. I now understand completely and wholly why people move to be close to friends. Like, I understand that. I completely get that. I think about that all the time now, where I think to myself, if I had all the money in the world, I would buy a big ass plot of land and I'd build homes for every single one of my
All of
close
my friends,
friends. Like, and
we
I
would
would
live
be
in a
like,
little cult farm.
move to my commune. Like, yeah. I'm like, bro, I get it. I actually, you know what? You know what, Valerie? I understand cults now. I understand communes. So,
My in-laws just moved here and we're working really hard on my parents. Because same, like,
yeah, it's just
I
like,
and I mean, like, we didn't even get into the fact that I have bonus children who have practices and games and after
yep.
school activities and
This is
responsibilities
talking
there. Like,
about
this is
one
just
child.
the baby.
This is
And, like
just the
and, like,
one.
all the families out there who have more than one. My god, my friends who have 2 under 2 or 2
Was
under 3.
just talking to somebody about 2 Under 2 the other day, and I was like, "Man, I understand it so deeply from a perspective of, like, I wanna get this over with. I wanna give my kid a sibling and move the fuck on and, like,
Yeah,
get my
and
body
do it all
back," and,
yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah, 100%. I've never identified with that more, honestly, than, like, now
right
being in
now.
the
You're like,
last
"Oh,
2 months
okay."
of pregnancy. Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, you wanna get pregnant same time next year? Sure, like, let's get it done." And then I think to myself, what makes you wanna die more? Uh, Getting pregnant again right after being pregnant or having 2 children under the age of 2? Like, what
See.
like, I'm sort of like, I don't know what would make me wanna jump off a bridge faster. So, anyway, but I do understand it. So,
But again,
yeah,
decisions, right? You're now you're
another
thinking about,
decision.
you wanna talk about algorithms? Now my phone is saying, "Are you ready for the
When
second
are you
one?"
gonna have
And
your
I'm like,
next kid?
"No." "What? I'm only 6 months out of this one." And that's coming from somebody
No.
who had a relatively easy pregnancy, all things
Yep,
considered. And I'm like, "No.
exactly.
Mm-mm. No, no,
Yeah,
no."
that's good. This is all coming through the lens too of 2 white women who have had
For sure.
relatively easy pregnancies, have resources, have support systems, have, the financial means for all of this. Like
In our 30s, not
in our
teenagers, like,
30s, not
yeah.
teenagers, correct. Like coming from healthy families, healthy family systems, healthy
God,
relationships.
we
Like
should probably clip this and also put it at the beginning.
literally, yeah. Like, so I mean, all of this, like
Flashing
grain of
lights.
salt, man. Grain of salt.
Someone's gonna be
So
like, "These bitches, they don't know." Um,
fully.
yeah. I should also state, like, I don't know, had teen parents, so different life experiences all the way around. But yeah, motherhood in
Yeah.
America, man. It's a really fun time.
Pew pew
Aren't you
pew.
excited, Maggie? Did
I
this
can't
really
wait.
just get you super excited for July?
I can't wait.
Everyone should know that the whole reason we decided to do this episode is I was like, "Oh, your baby shower's this weekend. That's so exciting. Let's do one about like pregnancy and postpartum." And then it's like, "Rawr." We
I'm
are
like,
pretty
wow,
furious.